So let me start. I mean, we have already introduced all the panelists. I'm going to give you a little bit of correction in that introduction, in as much as the name of Indian Bank's blockchain infrastructure company is now Indian Bank's digital infrastructure company. And Sunil, my bad. Ashish, I would be happy if you could start out by explaining what is the difference that you think is between the two names and why the change.
Okay. Interesting. It's ironical that at the blockchain conference, I have to explain why we changed the name. So yeah, we are essentially a consortium of 18 banks, leading banks in the country, which control close to 80% of the banking in India. And the idea when we were formed about 2 years back was to build digital public infrastructure using blockchain as a technology. And then I joined as a founding CEO about 8 months back. And then we said, why restrict ourselves to blockchain alone? Why not be more encompassing using Web3 or any other technology for solving real life banking problems? And then as we were discussing that, we said it'll require a name change as well. And to give it more encompassing name, we said it'll be digital infrastructure company. And one caveat in that is that payments space, NPCI has done a great job. So we will do all other aspects of banking, excluding payments. But does not. But one of the pieces which we do is also cross-border. To that extent, we are building that infrastructure, which takes care of overall banking.
Thank you. I think as a follow-up to that, what I would like to ask is that the Indian banks are still not very keen on servicing the crypto sector. And banks are subject to heavy regulations, particularly on the tech partnership side. So my question to you would be that as far as blockchain technology is concerned, what kind of blockchain technology are you looking to onboard? And is it just blockchain, or does it have any interplay with crypto as well?
So interesting. So one piece, I think, given that we are too early in the game and not many people still understand from a financial services perspective the blockchain as a tech, including partly regulators, etc. But important piece to call out would be about 2 months back, RBI set up a committee which actually went and studied blockchain in detail with a view to understand that this tech, one, and B, to understand what kind of risk which exist and how can they be mitigated. So that's the overall landscape, and my sense is at this point in time, given where we are and the positioning which the regulator has taken, it'll be important to build underlying tech and use cases around that rather than focusing on crypto-linked use cases, at least for the Indian market and the Indian consumers. Right? So that's a better way to get there and see how the overall tech benefits, and then crypto will come in. For variety of reasons, there have been a lot of negativity associated with crypto. So it's better to avoid that and then build.
Thank you. Sunil, coming to you now. With the recent Binance settlement, I think we can all very clearly say that compliance is going to be the way forward. Now, compliance on a global scale for a company such as Circle must be like a massively challenging task. What would your, could you tell us a little more about how a product manager would look at this compliance, and how has your experience been in implementing the FATF's travel rule?
Sure. Okay. First of all, thank you. I'm super proud to be here, super glad to be here. It's really amazing to see so many young entrepreneurs here building crypto products. So a little bit about me and Circle. So Circle is the largest regulated, transparent, trusted, regulated stablecoin company out there. What do I do at Circle? My job is to make sure Circle USDC coin, whenever it moves around the globe, it moves in a compliant manner. Now, coming back to how do you build compliant products in general, I think it starts with the attitude. First word is attitude. And Circle as a company, we have really taken up the attitude that we are going to make compliance as a competitive advantage for us. We're going to be the most regulated, most centralized, most decentralized company out there. We'll make sure we are the most trusted and transparent company. So this is the attitude starting from top down. Now, coming down to maybe what does Circle really do? So we have two big buckets of products. One is all about the USDC coin, which is a stable coin. Second is all about the tech services. So in my job at Circle, my job is to make sure whenever this USDC moves, it's moving in a compliant manner. For both Circle as a company, our direct customers to whom we are issuing the USDC coin, and for our customers whom we are issuing or we are giving tech services. Tech services is different from stablecoin. Tech services are more like, let's say, AWS services, compute services, which are not regulated services. So here, in this case, what happens is the obligation to be compliant is passed on to the customer, where the customer has to figure out how they're going to make sure their users are compliant, or they are compliant when their users are buying USDC, or USDC is moving around the ecosystem. I want to take a moment and demystify this word compliance. It's a big, loaded word, creates a lot of anxiety in a lot of people. At the heart of it, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. There are different laws that regulators are going to write because you're moving money. Those laws have to be interpreted by your lawyers. They will then work with your compliance teams to write some policies. You just need to abide by to those policies. Talking about US in general, outside in or inside out, there are few laws, not too many, just literally BSA, ML, sanctions, a couple of other rules like travel rule. And what are these regulators trying to do? And it's not just US, it's across the globe. Regulators are trying to do literally two things: who and what. Who is the one behind the money, and what are they doing with the money? Are they using the money for bad activities like terrorist financing, money laundering? And who are these people? So this is where things that we do like KYC, KYB, these are in service of knowing who are the people behind, where are they based, are they good actors, are they bad actors, what are they doing with the money, right? So at the end of the day, compliance, first of all, it's attitude. Second of all, it's legal plus tech. Legal figures out the interpretation of the law, and tech is how you become compliant. So that's exactly what we have done at Circle. We are trying to be the most trusted company out there, and I think we have done a pretty decent job with that.
And would you say that there is, can you tell us a little bit about the challenges on compliance when a product is serviced across different jurisdictions?
Absolutely, absolutely. So,
and sorry for the interjection, and just a little word of advice for builders here who are looking to service customers in offshore jurisdictions.
Right. So, of course, crypto is global. It doesn't have borders. This is where things like travel rule apply. Money is going to travel. It's going to travel from wallet to wallet. You have no idea where this wallet is sitting. Money will travel eventually. No one can stop the flow of money, right? It goes from wallet to wallet. Now, when you're serving customers in certain jurisdictions, of course, you can block which jurisdictions your product is open, depending on where the customer is coming from based on the geo and IP. I think the advice I can give you is there are some regulators out there that have global jurisdiction. As an example, CFTC, SEC. If any company out there, anywhere in the world, is serving people, US persons, US nationals, people based in US who have US passport and whatnot, they have to register, they have to make sure they're not facilitating bad activity with those users. So you have to be very careful about who is using your product. This is where things like KYC, KYB come into the picture. And read the law a bit before you open up your products everywhere, because some regulators, like I said, have global jurisdictions, so they can come after you.
Thank you. Ashish, Chandra. Complying with regulations in India, no matter what field, can never be easy, given the behemoth of laws that we have. In the sector that you operate in, it is certainly made more difficult because of the lack of clarity surrounding the regulations. Now, what are the top 5 tips that you would have for building a compliant project?
Yeah, sure. And I would say that I think compliance in India is fairly easy if you have the right intent, right? It's not as complex as what I have personally seen as a professional in US, UK, where compliance has been legislated in a very complex way. But anyways, I think my 5 tips would be 5 points is that, number 1, compliance has to run in the blood of the company. It should be a top-down approach, right? It has to have the direct sponsorship from the founders and the boards, and also allocation of the right amount of budgets, It is not a cost center. Second, to your point to, lawyers, and you said that the entry gate is the lawyers who have to interpret the laws and give the guidance to the compliance team and tech team. And my humble advice to lawyers is that don't be cute, right? Because we as lawyers always try to find some cute structuring and, we can try to figure out, we can find a workaround. Doesn't work. Because when you talk about compliance for a sector like us, which, touches the sovereignty of a country, which, touches the capital account of a country, the foreign exchange reserve of the country, it's not about only compliance with, I'm not talking about letter of the law. It's not only about compliance with the spirit of the law. You have to comply with the soul of the law. If you don't want to comply with the soul of the law, don't come in this business. RBI is going to chuck you out. Everybody is going to chuck you out. Third is that, you should build the product suited to the local market. And I'll give you my personal example. So before working for CoinSwitch, I was, heading the legal for WhatsApp in India. And I'm talking about late 2018 and early 2019 when WhatsApp was in a big regulatory, legal, and litigation issues for privacy, for mob lynching, for traceability, for payments, plenty of stuff, right? And I think the only thing which we did to solve all these complexity, apart from fighting court cases and lobbying and all, is about building the product suited for the Indian market. Because our country is different from other countries. It has a different demography. The way our government think is different from the way a US government will think. So unless you smell the soil over here, you build the product suited for the Indian market, you're not going to succeed. Ubers of the world will succeed in India when you build Uber for Indian market. Number 4, build the ecosystem around you. You alone cannot win the battle because this is innovative, thing, and you are bound to interact with law enforcement agencies, regulators, tax people, government, and bureaucrats. You have to evangelize your industry complexity. Be open and vulnerable. Go and talk to them in a very mature way, right? You empathize with the problems which are posed to you by the government, right? By a regulator. Don't brush them aside that I am the dude of the world, I can solve any problem. I think your issues are nonsense. No, you have to empathize with them and understand. The most important part, and we have seen that personally, because when I started my journey over CoinSwitch, I think industry was facing a lot of heat from enforcement agencies, right? Don't get scared. They are just doing their job, whether it is enforcement directorate, EOW, whatever income tax department, they are doing their job. They don't understand your industry. They don't understand how the old tax laws, foreign exchange laws, PMLA, so-and-so law applies to this industry. They have to learn. And the way they learn is when they come to your office and do some search and surveys. Now, if you are a smart guy, you will convert those adversities into opportunities, right? If you are doing the business in the right spirit, you tell me which serious startup entrepreneur has gone to the jail for one day. If you have to go to the police station for one day, go to the economic offenses wing for one day, ED for one day, put it into your business right, it's fine. They are as good business partner for you as any other startup founder. And last but not the least, even if you are not an exchange, you are building a product, right? I think you have to also think about compliances, the right way, how you are creating your smart contracts, right? Are they vulnerable to any hacking or rug pull, dump and all, pump and dump? How you are building your tokenomics, how you are building your taxonomy, what is your lexicology, right? The more compliant you are, the better you get the valuation. And we have a testimony of Tata Technologies IPO, right? $500 million worth IPO got subscribed by $20 billion. It's not about the business they do. I think the only thing which led to that 20-30x is the word Tata. And that comes with a huge investment in compliance they have made over the years. But on the other side, unfortunately, very sad to see so many startups off late are getting crushed, are getting killed, not because of the bad business model, not because they didn't have the fund, only because of bad compliances and bad governance. So I think compliance is as good for a company and a founder as the product or as the VC fund. If you ignore it, you can raise billions of dollars, you would be out in fraction of second. We have seen FTX.
Yes, I will just quickly add one thing. So like Ashish was saying, compliance cannot be a checkbox. There are companies who will just have it as a checkbox, ki check kiya, ho gaya, right? I think other thing that both of us talked about was interpretation of the law. There are many cases where there is no law written yet. So what do you do in those cases, right? Because regulators will come after. It's happening in US right now. Do the right thing. Think about the user. Think about what they're doing with you. What would a good person do in that scenario? It's not like someone, like big non-exchanges that we know about, someone gives you their money and you use it for your personal use. You buy some houses wherever, right? It doesn't work like this. So do the right thing, something that's logical that you can explain to the regulators when they come after you, right? If it is logical, explainable, because it's not clear, this is what anyone would do, right? So that's probably the way. And it's called a risk-based approach in the legal terms.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Ashish, I'll go back to you for two things that you mentioned, which are very interesting. One is that compliance has to be a top-down approach. And I mean, we know that crypto exchanges at one point, 2021, 22, were facing a lot of regulatory heat in India. Now, did you have any challenges convincing your internal stakeholders about compliance?
Well, it was the reverse way around because we have very long-term, strong venture capital funds on the cap table for the like of A16Z, Coinbase, Paradigm, Sequoia, and Ribbit, and they know how to build long-term businesses which are compliance first, right? So it was more of a reverse engineering to us, where I think they said, Ashish, we are okay to compromise short-term speed and short-term profitability at the expense of being over-compliant, okay? The phrase that we want to comply with the soul of law is not my own phrase. This is what works in the DNA. And I think my role, while yes, we can talk about over-compliant, but we also have to be more realistic about the industry where we are working, where sometimes over-compliant can also put you out of business, then you can't really do it. So there comes the role of a general counsel or the legal team or compliance team, right? How do you really find that fine balance, right? Wherein inside you believe that you are doing the right thing. But unfortunately, the legal and regulatory ecosystem is not supporting you, right? So I first go with that inside feeling. Hey, Ashish, Chandra, do you feel that your company is doing the right thing? Yes. Okay, now let's build around defensive use case, some alternate use case. Then you follow cuteness, right? Because you don't want to over-comply. It's not that operation successful and patient dead, right? And I think in this journey, it's a game of skill. You have to work on some permutation and combination, some probabilities in terms of, which thing you do will send you to jail and which thing will do you to get you interim injunction, which things are okay, fine, which thing you have strong defenses, where you think that you can get a good senior counsel, which court will do it, which state police officer will have the jurisdiction. So all those kind of game of chess which a GC has to play. And I think last but not the least, I think you are also a talent hunter. I alone cannot do all these things, so I have to hire the right people in my team, and most importantly, I have to spot and hire the right external counsels, right? So that, I think, is the toughest job I, as a GC of India's largest crypto exchange, has, to spot the talent, to nurture them, and to retain them, right? And to make sure that they all work together. So it's easy for me because I don't have to convince. I have to follow their ethos of the over-compliance, but take a calibrated call, play a game of chess, and hire the right people.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Singhal, coming to you now. You've had a very long career in the financial services side, and perhaps understand better than most of us here on how the RBI, views things. So my question to you would be that, could you shed some light on what are the RBI's primary regulatory concerns, and how should Indian projects think about this, and what should they ideally avoid when building their products in India?
See, fundamentally, if you were to wear the shoes of RBI, they are a regulator for financial services in India. And what does that mean? A lot of us and people like us and the Indian population have kept their hard-earned money into banks which are regulated with the RBI. Now, first concern which RBI always will have is that is that money safe? Right? Whatever practices banks or anybody associated with financial services is doing, is it going to cause damage to the poorest of poor people and their hard-earned money there? That's one primary concern which they will have. This other concern which they have is that, will anything happen in this industry which will bring disrepute to the sovereignty of the country? Is there bad money which is coming in to this sector which will overall destroy the company industry? And I think one has to give it to RBI over the last 15, 20 years, at least, which I have seen them very, very closely. While somebody might say that they are very conservative as a regulator, but then the ask of the regulator is to be conservative because they can't afford the industry to blow up, whether it was during the Lehman Brothers crisis or the more recent COVID. I think all the measures which RBI took have helped the economy, industry being in good stead. So that's an important piece. The third piece from an RBI lens would also be that the builders, the startups, and there have been enough and more players in the ecosystem across various industries which have been there, who will be smart and will take the common man who's a novice for a ride by doing dubious things, right? So, and hence the business models, the processes which are evolving, are they designed to build real good business cases, or greed will take over and take the normal consumers for a ride? So I think those are the important pieces when you wear from RBI lens. Also, just to add to what Ashish and Sunil were mentioning, it's important to abide by the law as well as compliance of law in the spirit of it rather than the words. When you start looking at from a word perspective, you start doing cute things, right? But when you do it in the spirit, even when the laws or the regulations don't exist, you will have to be certain that how will they adapt to it, how will the regulator or a normal layman look at it, etc. And then you start developing your product, processes, solutions. You will always do better. So I keep saying this, one needs to have a childlike simplicity when you are dabbling in an industry which is too nascent, doesn't have the regulations to support it. Right? Because if the regulations existed, one would say, okay, it's permitted regulatorily, I'm going and doing it without taking any undue interpretation of the regulation. So I think that purity is extremely important. And another piece which Ashish mentioned, it's for all the founders to look at, is that over-regulation, etc. And hence, it's, always sacrifice your short-term cute stuff, gains, profit, revenue, etc., so that you are building for the long term, particularly at a time when there are so much things which have happened internationally in this space. All of us would have been better if they had not happened, etc., from a negative perception perspective. Plus, there's a long way to go, and some of the things will fall in place. So I think doing the right thing is more important than trying to build big in the near term.
Sure. That's very good advice, actually. And I think, Sunil, my next question would be to you, sort of based on doing the right thing. I think we can see that stablecoins are going to get regulated. Most recently, in fact, MAS has come up with their own concept paper on how stablecoin regulation should take place. Now, do you think that this is a tough act to pull off? And do you think that regulators will be able to sort of stop users from using a stablecoin issued by a more lightly regulated or unregulated offshore jurisdiction?
Yep. This is my all-time favorite question, by the way. So first of all, starting with the stablecoin bill or the act. So in US, stablecoin bill is already out of the committee. It may be picked up by the House soon enough, and there are still 24 days in the year. So this may happen this year. If not, maybe early next year. Stablecoin bill will be the first bill that will come basically around the crypto law that will come out of US. Secondly, I want to demystify this thing. So there is this meme that I have seen, not just here, but everywhere, that US is lagging behind. They're not regulating things, right? I want to talk about a few things. So there are a few things around that I talked about earlier: sanctions law, BSA, AML law, travel rule. So there are like 151 countries right now that are working with FATF, trying to figure out how do you comply to travel rule. 151 countries. Take a guess how many countries are compliant. One. That country is US. In US, travel rule has been around since 2013, 10 years. Number two, BSA/AML. Every regulated company in US is already following the law around BSA/AML, money laundering. There are 22 rules that FinCEN has published. India has figured out there are 59 rules. A lot of countries are figuring it out right now. Number three, sanctions law has been around. Most of these companies in US are already complying to sanctions law. Sanctions law doesn't apply to crypto, it applies to every company who is based out of US or started by people from the US. The only thing that hasn't been figured out yet is what is a security versus a commodity. It's a very, very, very hard topic. If it was easy, there are tokenomics, there are people behind tokens, how the tokens were issued. If it was an easy topic, every government would have figured it out. So TLDR, once US has figured this out, every government will probably follow the same thing. And secondly, US is already way, way ahead of every other government. I'll say one more thing. The stablecoin issued by or approved by the government from an offshore entity. It's a very simple topic. Let's say there are several governments right now. UK FCA, Singapore MAS, Japan FSA, EU MiCA, plus 27 other countries. Hong Kong will be coming out in Q1. There are a bunch of other countries, UAE, WARA, they have all published their stablecoin rules. So this thing is going to happen. My personal prediction here is, give it 3 years, literally 3 years, there'll be 150 plus stablecoins pegged to local currencies. There will be CBDCs in some markets. They will all interoperate between each other depending on the properties of the CBDCs, public or private, how much the government is willing to allow. There will be stablecoins all around. And lastly, on the topic of offshore stablecoins, take a simple example. I am Singapore government. I have agreed that I want to issue stablecoin. Now there is some random company in some random country, don't know where, maybe we know the company, don't know where, they say, guess what? We are going to define the rules for Singapore dollar, and guess what? We'll start collecting Singapore dollars from people, start giving them Singapore dollar stablecoin. Do you think that government is not going to take offense? They will definitely take offense. So the keyword here, you should write it down, keyword here is domicile. Domicile. Who is the government issuing that currency? That government eventually will be regulating that currency. End of the story. That is exactly how it's going to be. So you can issue, they will be, if you're not following the law, first of all, you are already going to be game over. Even if you're following the law, you will be heavily regulated. You will have to figure out, or the government will figure out where you are based and what activities are you doing. So it's offshore stablecoins. They are probably short-lived. There could be other challenges around how big it is, where it's based, who are the users, which countries are those users in, what are the kind of a particular country's alliances with that country where the users are. So there are a lot of geopolitical issues that will come into the picture, but in my mind, I think it's a short-lived thing.
Right. I know our time's up, but I'd be happy if any one of you could take up the last question of the session. Where do you think this industry is headed generally on the compliance front? It could ideally be divided into two camps, a hopefully fully decentralized and pseudo-anonymous camp, as opposed to a more centralized company which is subject to a web of global regulations. And do you really see the first business model succeeding within the Indian regulatory framework?
So I can take, compliance is always, I would say, hate to say this word, but it is always a byproduct of the business success, right? I mean, if let's say the business model makes sense, if let's say there is a room for the business to grow in a particular country, the entrepreneur or ecosystem would definitely want to invest in building for compliances, right? I think one thing which I would like to just say, and that's the last thing from my side, so I've been hearing since morning, and also I think for last 2 years since my association with the industry, is that Indian government and regulator, I think they are waiting for the builders to build for the masses in India, right? before they could take the first step to, bring some sort of regulation or, bring this industry into a formal channel. I think this is a chicken and egg situation, sir. If you go back, let's say, Y2K buzz, which, which has put India on the map of the global IT systems, right? It was supported by government. They have released STPI rules. They gave tax benefit. They gave some export benefits. Look at right now in the EV space, in the battery space, in the semiconductor space, in the manufacturing of mobile phone space, the government is incentivizing. They are backing it up. So thinking of that, okay, builders will build a mass use case and then you will incentivize them, I think it's more of a chicken and egg kind of situation. My view is that it's not going to happen for next 5 years. You are releasing a lot of sandboxes for various use cases. It's no harm to start with a sandbox and take some risk. You have to sacrifice, the country and regulator need to sacrifice something to take the leadership position in this space. Otherwise, we would see that billions of Indians are using the Facebooks and the WhatsApp and the Googles and the iPhones of the world, but the wealth creation is happening there. No wealth creation is happening here. Yep. We are going and becoming the CEOs there, but not over here. This is the opportunity. I would urge government to take some pain. Be ready for some small sacrifices. Give room for the builders to build while protecting them and and also incentivizing. And retain the new age of wealth creation in India. It's not about $10 trillion. We'll become we will become $50 trillion by 2050.
Yep. Can I respond? Yeah. So I think so. Centralization versus decentralization, right? These are technologies. At the end of the day, technology is a means to an end. It's not about the technology. It has never been about the technology. They will be always centralized and decentralized. At the end of the day, and I call this the how is the user being served? At the end of the day, it will come down to what problems are you serving for the user? Secondly, are you doing any bad activities? It could be a 100% decentralized world, as long as you want to maintain your privacy and everything, you maintain your privacy. We don't really want to know who you are. But when you do bad activity, we want to know who you are. As simple as that. So you can maintain your privacy for as long as you want, but if you're going to be involved in bad activity, you could be fully decentralized. Someone somewhere will have to comply. Maybe not you directly, but your exchange. Or the wallets that you are using, like a lot of us use decentralized wallets like MetaMask and whatnot, self-custodial unhosted wallets. You didn't create that wallet at home, did you? Someone gave you the technology to create that wallet. That someone, their neck will be on the line to make sure if you did bad activity, they will have to figure out who you are. And they can figure out who you are based on your IP. It's very simple. So decentralized, centralized, it's just a means to an end. It's not what's solving the user problem. You have to go after the user and their pain points.
So I think the world will coexist depending on the use case, etc. Some will flow towards centralized and some inherently solutions will come with the decentralized world. So it's not really zero-sum game, not even in the next 10 years, to my belief. And also, I think the advantage and the circumstances for all of you to build on is also that rather than looking at crypto, look at what you can do to CBDC. Right? That's a government-supported initiative, and whatever you can build around CBDC would be a good start. Also, to Ashish's point, government regulator keeps putting out sandboxes, etc. Like the recent sandbox application which ended on 30th November, it was an open theme sandbox. I don't know how many of you actually noticed that and put in your applications. So I can tell you after engaging with regulators over a period of time, they understand that it's important to discover this space, while they obviously have concerns of anyone going and building anything out there which leads to fundamental risk to the economy and the reputation, etc. But there are avenues available in Bangalore. A lot of you, RBIH is there. In fact, they keep running hackathon. There's an fintech department within RBI who keeps running hackathons, etc. Participate in that and participate with an objective of building the ecosystem, getting everybody to understand, educating people what the risk is and how you are mitigating that risk. So that's an important aspect to take things forward for all the builders.
Thank you, everyone. That was some really inspiring and expert advice that all of you have got, and I hope it has woken you up after your lunch. Thank you so much.